Being a Muslim has been wonderful for my soul and my spirit and who I am. It's helped me raise my kids, it's helped me connect with the divine. It's helped me connect with all people. That makes me feel, that helps me build bridges to every person. When I first got in office, I was the Muslim guy. But then I just stopped being, it started being a core identity and just a feature of who I was. When I ran for a statewide office as Attorney General, it really didn't come up that much. Some of my political opponents tried to say that I was creeping Sharia and all that kind of madness. But most people were like, well, I just met the guy and he's talking about helping me get my wages and helping me fight monopoly and helping me, get treated fairly as a consumer. And that works for me, so I'm going to vote for him.
So this creeping Sharia line, where does that come from? There is almost this association of an enemy within.
Yeah, well, so it is a invented narrative by people who have both economic and political motives, propagandizing to, give people a sense of an enemy, right? That's really all it is. But, there is an anti-Muslim industry. There are people who benefit from division, negativity, bad energy, and hate. There are people who benefit from it. Any self-respecting demagogue is going to cast someone as the enemy, right? And it's better if the enemy is not a real enemy. And people need an enemy. They need to be against somebody, but they don't want enemies that are actual enemies. They want enemies that are no real threat that they can build up. Now, these people know that the Muslim community is no threat to the United States. In fact, we're the most patriotic people. But who better to demonize? They can't really do and won't really do anything to you, but you can get votes and get donations and get contracts by making them look bad, right? And then, there is an element who believes that a rising Muslim political voice in America will alter the conversation around the Middle East, and they don't want the conversation altered, right? It's like, we don't want a more nuanced conversation around Israel-Palestine. We want the conversation we've been having led by Benjamin Netanyahu. And that's all we want. And we won't tolerate any other ways of conceiving of this conversation. And so what we need to do is demonize this community, make sure that they're cast in the most negative light so that they never are listened to. What he doesn't know is that most Muslims have a diverse points of view on this issue. That's just the reality. For some Muslims, it is the issue. For some Muslims, it's really not the issue. So some Muslims are like, yeah, that's an important issue, but I'd rather talk about Kashmir. Other Muslims are like, yeah, that's an important issue, but I want to talk about civil rights in India for Muslims. Other people are like, yeah, those things are important, but I need to figure out how to get my small business started, right? I need to figure out how to pay for my college education. I need to know how to figure out how to make sure that I can join a union and have a voice on my job. So there are a range, the Muslim political conversation is very diverse, but there are people who think if any Muslim gets any sort of prominence in America, they're going to try to hurt Israel. This is not true.
And so is it surprising that somebody like Trump, during his election, used Muslims as actively as he did?
It's not surprising, and it's actually expected. He said a complete ban on any Muslim. He was pretty explicit. He said, you know what, these people are maybe 2-3% of the country. Many of them are not sure on their voting. Many of them look back to the countries they might have immigrated from and see that as home, But what he doesn't know about so many Muslims who have migrated and their children is that they left those places running to a more democratic, safe, secure place. You want to find some true flag-waving, patriotic people. Look to some American Muslims. These folks but they're not blind. They have critiques of the quality of our democracy, but that's part of their patriotism. They believe that, where we come from, you can't stand up and say anything critical of Modi. You couldn't say anything critical of al-Haq in Pakistan. You couldn't. I mean, they said we're leaving. You couldn't say anything critical of Bashar al-Assad or his father or his family. So a lot of the Muslims you see in the United States, I mean, they come here and many of them are like, we either don't want nothing to do with politics because we had a bad experience with it, or we want a lot to do with it because what we left is crazy. And we want a better thing. We think America can provide a better thing. And, in the United States, you can practice Islam more freely than you can nearly anywhere in the world. I'm very confident that the rhetoric of the president and Trump as even a candidate contributed to the level of hatred. It sort of inspired people who are already close to the edge anyway, and he's completely won't take any responsibility for it, and because he's not sorry for it. And again, it's classic demagogic behavior. It's classic. I mean, how many people have I ever met? So many who have said, I've been inspired by what some leader said. Well, Trump inspires people too. And if he gets up there and says, we're going to stop all Muslims from coming into the country, a complete and total ban, I think the words were he said.
And he said, I think Islam hates us.
He said, yeah, and he lied on Muslims saying that they were celebrating 9/11 and on and on and on. I mean, that's how he thinks, and he perpetuates it, but he's not an idiot. It is important for people to understand. Trump may be a kind of a bigot and a racist, and I think that he is, but I also think that he is very conscious of what he's doing. It's a way to explain political movements of Black and brown people. It's a way to explain, forces happening in the world that you don't see and can't control, beyond your control. So if you're ordinary, and much of this is and much of it is designed to hurt working class white people. Why do I say that? Well, because if you're trying to make sure that you get tax cuts for the rich, no environmental regulation, they can pollute as much as they want, banks can do whatever they want. If you're trying to make sure that we have free market fundamentalism and that enhances the wealth and power of the most privileged people in our society, then how are you going to get the great mass of majority working class white people to go along with it? You've got to deceive them. You've got to divide them, and you've got to discourage them. How do you do that? Well, you say, you people, I'm not giving y'all nothing, but know this, you're better than them. Right? You people, you got good religion. Those people, they're Muslims. You people are moral. Those people, they're immoral. They want to marry the same sex. They want to have an abortion. They're bad. And so you use all this manipulation, but the whole effect is to keep people down by giving them nothing other than a false belief that they're better. So that is really the overall goal. That's the overall goal, is to amass power for a tiny clique. But one thing you should know is that a lot of white people don't go for it. I mean, let's be honest. Hillary Clinton did beat Trump in the popular vote, right? A lot of white people do not buy that crap. Many do. And so, the question is, how can we connect with our fellow Americans and help them understand that our overall welfare depends upon human solidarity? That's what we really need, right? And we need to try to crack out of our little boxes and understand each other a little bit better. This problem will not be solved by some grand leader. This is a problem that needs to be solved at the local community level, mosque by mosque, church by church, mosque/church, mosque/synagogue, getting together and coming up with some common ways to help people. So we're in this moment where we've dealt with the pandemic, we've dealt with the death of George Floyd. What better moment is there to come together and try to build some bridges of understanding between people? That could work, but we need some leadership to do it. We need people who are willing to extend themselves to do it. It's not easy. I mean, trying to get somebody to understand your point of view when their pocketbook interest depends upon them not understanding your point of view is hard. But most people don't really materially benefit from anti-Muslim hate or even racism. So you can have a conversation with them. The Islamophobes and the extremists who disgrace Islam they can't possibly disgrace Islam. They disgrace themselves by misrepresenting Islam, have a lot in common. And they both say Islam hates us and we hate Islam. Or they say Islam hates us, therefore we hate Islam. That's what Trump says. Or they say the West hates us, therefore we hate the West. And there's no middle ground. There's no overlap. There's nothing. And anybody who acts like there is need to be wiped out. So the bottom line is, what we really need is human solidarity. What we really need to recognize is that we're all children of Adam and Eve. That is how we build out, what Martin Luther King called beloved community, right? The events of the last several years have shown that America's problem is not its Muslim community. America's problem has a lot to do with the way we do policing, has a lot to do with our unfair economic system, has a lot to do with a number of things, but the fact that we have Muslim community here isn't really our problem. In fact, Muslim community is doing a lot to make this country a better place every single day. And is an energetic group of Americans who really believe that, fairness is essential to human life. Economic fairness is helpful and critical to human life, and are working on it every day. When I first got to Congress in 2006, I was the first one. Now, there are 3 Muslims in Congress. I am not one of them, and most of them are women. So, things change, and you may have different feelings about Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar, but they are contributing to the national dialogue around housing, healthcare, policing. They are contributing to the national dialogue around critical issues. And it's a weird thing when it comes to women. Why do they feel like they're so... You would think, okay, well, patriarchy says that women are not as threatening as men. In fact, patriarchy says women are illegitimate social actors. They don't count. But yet they unleash hell on Ilhan and Rashida and every other Muslim leader female leader I know.
Is it because they're women, or is it because the hate has become so organized and so well funded and so well structured that they're just targeting them more effectively?
It could be both, but I think that if your argument is Islam is backward, it's sexist, it's wrong, it's everything about it is bad, it doesn't believe in the rights of humanity and it suppresses women, then you can't have these 2 powerful women running around leading everybody. You gotta somehow account for them. You can't have it. The truth is, Islam has always had powerful women. Always. Aisha, Fatima, and so many more down the line. And if you are somebody who's trying to say that Islam is incompatible with democracy, because in part it's sexist, then you can't have strong women. Why do you think Donald Trump said, oh yeah, he said this to Khizr Khan. Do you know what I'm talking about? So Khizr Khan is up there making I swear that guy had me in tears, talking about his son who gave all. And his wife is there with him. And then Trump says, oh, you wouldn't even let your wife talk. And she says, I don't know what you're talking about. I lost my son who came through my womb and I've raised every single day. I would have loved to tell you off, but I couldn't. So I let him do the talking. But it's not because I can't speak, and she did speak. But you notice how Trump wanted to say, he won't even let her talk. That wasn't even the truth. But Trump needed that trope, right? Of the meek, silent, weak, suppressed Muslim woman. So I think that there is something to Black Muslim man being scary guy. I think there's also something to how can we perpetuate the defamation of Muslims if one of the things we say about them is manifestly untrue, which is they don't have female leaders who are strong. Well, we have a lot, and we got more coming.